Recently I've been trying to watch more seasonal anime, but I tend to prefer waiting till the season is over and then marathoning stuff, rather than waiting week by week. So I was a little late to the party with Alma-chan Wants Kazoku ni Naritai. The interesting thing is, it isn't so much about Alma, the titular robot girl, so much as it's about her family and the ensemble cast which grows around them. You see, the setup looks something like this. Alma is a robot girl constructed by two scientists. One, Enji, a brilliant AI engineer in charge of her programming, and the other, Suzume, an expert in robotics. On the surface, it looks like the two of them, each extremely prideful about their own skills, are just collaborating in a purely professional capacity on this project as a stepping stone to further their own careers. The reality is quite different. See, it's like a relationship where both parties are tsunderes. Both of them have feelings for each other, but they don't want to admit it out of pride. However, when Alma's construction is completed and she begins to refer to them as her mother and father, these two scientists have to effectively raise a daughter together, and they form a questionably functional but very wholesome family dynamic. While the show definitely centers around Alma, it's in the same way as Pirates of the Caribbean centers around Jack Sparrow, or Doctor Who centers around the Doctor. These characters drive the plot forward and act like regular comic relief, but the actual protagonists are the people caught in their wake. Enji and Suzume find themselves suddenly thrust into the position of parenthood, something which they presumably both knew was going to happen, but just didn't really think about it in their quest to develop this sentient robot weapon. Alma's bluntness is the vehicle by which they are forced to grow closer and begin to accept their feelings for each other, and also their mutual love towards Alma as her parents. See, the show rests upon a delicately stacked pyramid of gap moe. There's the gap between Alma's appearance, childish mannerisms, and general innocence about the world, against her super intellect, bluntness, and the fact that she's an ultra-powerful weapon. Then there's the gap between her parents' self-conception as serious, morally dubious scientists, against their reality as two emotionally immature young adults who have a crush on each other. And then there's the final gap between Alma and her parents, where Alma, despite being ostensibly the child in the relationship, is often the most emotionally mature. Beyond these core relationships, the central triangle composed of Alma and her parents, each of the characters who get introduced as the show goes on also have some form of gap moe, which we will explore as we go on. Like any good slice of life show, the joy of watching this anime is in the particular relationship dynamics between characters. In the best kinds of slice of life anime, you basically just set up a bunch of characters and then let them run loose. People talk about characters having chemistry together. Well, slice of life is a genre built on chemical reactions, on the interplay between personalities of various characters. Alma-chan Wants Kazoku ni Naritai is full of fun details in how Alma comes to understand the world, haphazardly applying her pre-programmed knowledge of human relationships and society to her own atypical situation, such as deciding that a robot vacuum cleaner, which her parents built together before they built her, qualifies as her older brother, or in the first place, her identifying Enji and Suzume as her parents. To be clear, much of the dynamic specifically pertaining to the awkwardness of Enji and Suzume not admitting their feelings for one another sort of fades into the background as we get deeper into the show. They gradually settle into their de facto husband and wife roles naturally, and this progression feels very organic. I'm also thankful for this because I think if this dynamic had stayed the same for the whole show, it would kind of start to get a little grating. By virtue of their duty of care towards Alma, they become comfortable in their role as her parents, and their relationship mellows out into something like a comfy family dynamic. It's nice to see a romance story which isn't set in high school for once. But it's when the show begins to stretch beyond just the core relationship and explore other new characters and new environments as it goes on that I think it really hits its stride. For example, episode 3 primarily focuses on Alma meeting a girl called Hana. Hana has fiery red hair and a fiery personality to match. She seems kind of tomboyish and aggressive, perhaps even some kind of delinquent, but we soon find out that the reason she's outside in the rain and ended up running into Alma in the first place is because she's been searching for her lost puppies. Once again, we return to the core otaku fundamentals of well-executed gap moe. In this instance, it's the gap of this girl who seems kind of like a scary delinquent on the surface, turning out to be the sort of person who looks after cute puppies and cares for them deeply. Despite being told not to reveal that she's a robot to anyone outside the family, Alma ends up using her special abilities to help Hana in her quest for the missing puppies, ultimately revealing her true identity when they fly up into the sky together to search. This focus on gap moe has been a fundamental building block of otaku storytelling for more than 2 decades, and this is the sort of stripped down, back to basics otaku work which I personally wish we had more of. It's like the best Italian cuisine. Simple, high quality ingredients, well combined, form a dish which is more than the sum of its parts. Once you have stuff like your main character dynamics, a primary romance, a fun gimmick, stuff like that, you don't need to be massively ambitious. You can just tell a humble, solid slice of life story. But that's not to imply that this show has nothing to say, however. Beyond the general general themes around family, trying your best, the nature of parenting. One thing I found particularly interesting was a plot thread in episode 5. You see, here we get something uniquely appropriate for this show in particular. It's not a topic I've really seen much otaku media cover before, and that is AI art. It makes sense to include some commentary on the modern state of AI in the real world in a show about a super advanced one. Here, Alma happens across a mangaka who is going crazy trying to meet her deadlines. Being a superpowered AI robot, Alma offers to help her draw panels. As it turns out, she's very good at it. Just like diffusion models in real life, she downloads the mangaka's previous works and uses them to emulate her style. The mangaka is very glad to be able to offload the drawing onto Alma, and her editor is impressed with the quality of these new drawings. Eventually, this mangaka is having Alma generate the entire manga for her, and it's doing super well, selling like hotcakes. But at the end of this segment, Alma has to go back home, and the mangaka is left staring at a blank document as she realizes she's completely forgotten how to draw manga herself. I thought this was a very solid critique of AI art. Often, criticisms of AI art tend to focus heavily on intellectual property rights or poor quality output, but here we instead see the human side of things. The idea that relying too heavily on AI causes you to become dependent on it. In this instance, Alma just goes home, but in the real world, not to turn this into a video about AI, but it's likely that AI companies are hoping we become dependent on their tools so that they can gradually and shitify and upcharge more and more and more, squeezing their users for every penny. I don't know, I don't find that side of the industry criticized as much, and I really wasn't expecting to find it articulated so effectively from a random moe anime. But back to characters, because we haven't even got to best girl yet. Obviously, this is her. One look at this character design should pretty much tip you off as to what's going on here. Unexpectedly, despite being centered on a straight romance, this show does have yuri elements. Right at the end of episode 3, we get this ominous looking shot of some people standing on a roof where the framing signals that these are going to be antagonists going forwards. But if you've seen this kind of anime before, you already know where this is going. This antagonism is going to be playful at its strongest and probably a vehicle for future friendship. And that's exactly what we get. Alma and her family's day out is interrupted by this other robot girl crashing down and challenging Alma to a fight to prove that she is the superior robot. Before Alma can wipe the floor with her, her parents step in, and it's decided that it would probably be best to settle this with a less destructive form of competition, which leads to them going back to Alma's place, playing some video games together, and falling asleep, basically becoming friends. They quickly develop a sisterly dynamic, with Alma being the more advanced model taking on the role of the Onesan, and this other robot, Machina, taking on the immortal role. I really thought this dynamic was extremely well executed. They managed to find this Goldilocks zone middle ground of sibling rivalry, where the two of them are constantly competing with one another, but ultimately it's just an excuse to play together. In a later episode when they both got stuck on the moon, don't worry about it, Alma is even willing to sacrifice herself to save her sister. But this is not yet the best girl, or the Yuri, no, because that comes from Omoikane. Omoikane is the person who created Machina, and she is obsessed with Suzume, having gone to school with her and idolizing her skill in robotics, to a maybe unhealthy degree. She can't accept that Suzume has settled down with this random man, Enji. I mean, this might be the perfect woman, just look at her. Her character design is impeccable. I mean, there's not too much I can say here, just look at it. The dark circles, the plasters on her neck, the fringe covering her eyes, the half-moon glasses. Please destroy my life. Another instance of the light Yuri elements comes from Neon, a rich drill hair Ojo-sama, daughter of the CEO of a giant tech conglomerate, who shows up and immediately asks for Alma's hand in marriage. In the end, these are both kind of side characters who just show up from time to time. Their arcs are never central to the narrative, but they're a joy to be around and spice up the world. As I said before, the idea for this kind of show is to have various characters with strong personalities interact and let the chemical reactions do the work, driving the comedy and nichijoke comfiness. Look, I'm not going to say this show is a masterpiece and that everyone who watches it is going to love it as much as I did. Obviously, slice of life isn't everyone's cup of tea, but I'm just glad that shows along these lines, just focusing on light nichijoke comedy with a strong cast and some fun gimmicks, I'm glad this genre is still surviving and thriving, because these kinds of shows are exactly what drew me into anime in the first place. The rock I keep coming back to. Is it the funniest comedy? No. Is it the cutest moe? No. Is it the most emotionally engaging romance? No, but it's just all around solid, executing on strong fundamentals, and frankly that's all I want. These kinds of shows get buried in seasonal charts and they go underappreciated by the wider anime viewing public, and maybe that's just how it's always going to be. But to bring back the culinary metaphors, this isn't the Michelin star restaurant experience of massively popular popular high-budget broad appeal shows like Free Ren, this is high-quality mom-and-pop shop stuff, serving comfort food which will hopefully never go out of style. If you enjoyed the sound of my voice, then you might be interested in joining my Patreon, where I release a 1-hour long podcast roughly every week or two. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.